As an artist, it can be difficult to know if you're going down the right road, to know if the things that you're working on today, the job that you're at, if these things are helping you get to the place that you want to be tomorrow. I took a brief road trip with my family to the oldest city in America, St. Augustine. And on our way up there, we took so many roads that I remember thinking to myself, in life, how do you know if you're on the right road? In the story of Alice in Wonderland, she asked the Cheshire Cat, hey, which way out of the woods? And he said, well, that depends on where you're trying to go. And she said, well, I don't really much care where I'm going. I just want to get out of here. And he said, well, then in that case, it doesn't matter which direction you go in. Meaning if you just start walking, eventually you'll make your way out of the woods some way or another. However, this isn't really the most efficient way because in life, you need a clear vision of what you want your destination to be if you want to understand what steps you need to take to get there, closer to your goal. Otherwise, like Alice, you'll be wandering around and you'll be sure to arrive somewhere. It's just that what if that somewhere isn't really where you ultimately wanted to arrive? To put it more simply moving forward isn't always the best strategy because you could be moving forward but in the wrong direction. So I grew up in New York City and I took a lot of trains. And I remember I went to high school in downtown, so I knew that I had to take an uptown train to get home. Now here's the thing, there was a lot of uptown trains, but not all uptown trains took me home. Some uptown trains went to the Bronx, other ones went up somewhere else. So again, I knew that while a lot of trains went uptown, not all of them took me home. I read that there's over 120 million miles of road in this world. So knowing if you're on the right one is super important. I don't know if there's a 100% sure way of knowing that you're on the best road at that time. But I do know that you could at least know if you're headed somewhat in the right direction. Help mommy.
Just jump. Let me see you. On that ramp.
For example, you don't just take one street home. You take one street that takes you to another street, and that one connects to another street, and eventually that one will take you home. But you take each one of those streets knowing that the next one is going to get you closer to your destination. So you're probably thinking, what does all this mean to you as an artist? Is the type of work that you're working on today helping you get closer to the type of work that you want to be making tomorrow? Or are you just doing this kind of work for extra money? Are you doing it for extra likes on social media? And I know that this is an obvious question with an obvious answer, but the fact is that I think most of us miss this. We say we want to be a character designer, but we take a lot of side gigs working on logo design. Or we say that we want to illustrate our first children's book or a graphic novel, but then we end up drawing our neighbor's cat or their kids. Or their kid like with the cat. And so you're putting a bunch of extra dollars in your pocket by really putting a bunch of extra hours and a ton of effort towards something that isn't even getting you closer to the top of that mountain. I mentioned earlier that knowing your destination will help you figure out what are the next steps that you need to take. And while knowing exactly where you want to be will help you know what steps you need to take forward, you might be thinking, what if I don't know exactly where I'm meant to be? What if I just know that I'm meant to do something creative? Then in that case, I would probably say that it's better to be like Alice and just start moving, because there's nothing worse than not doing anything at all. And if I can be honest, I did a little bit of this in my creative journey. And I know it's contrasting what I said earlier, but it's just that sometimes it's in the exploration that we end up discovering things that we never even thought to look for. The last thing I want to leave you with is this. Many times in life, we think that we're on the wrong path because we face opposition. But a lot of times, the hard thing to do is often the right thing to do. There's this saying that I like, and it goes, if you do the hard thing now, your life will be easy later on. But if you do the easy thing now, your life will be harder later on. The Bible says in Matthew 7:13, enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow is the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. We get to God's kingdom through a narrow path and a small gate. And the Bible makes it very clear that it's not going to be the popular street or the easy path. So it's going to take faith to see it, and it's going to take faith to walk through it all the way to the end. As I mentioned earlier, there's an estimated 120 miles of road on this planet. But none of these roads or paths matter if spiritually we're not on the right road, on the road to Jesus. The Bible says that He is the way, the truth, and the life. What I found in my life is that when I was lost spiritually, I was lost and confused about every decision and every path that I was on. So I want to invite you to seek truth and to get onto the right path. Keep the fire alive, my friends. So we didn't get yelled at. So somebody took my it looked like they were taking my license plate, because it is weird to see people, I guess, on a train track recording. But I don't know. I thought we would get yelled at or kicked out or the cops would show up, but it's an adventure every time, to say the least.